John aka Chicken Fillets here, and it's time once again for another Remembering episode. The series, well, I like to remember about a video game. Now, how we like to do this is we'll do this in a one-shot, one-take format, so if there's spoilers, if there's mistakes, well, you have been warned. Now, today's game we're going to remember about is Final Fantasy X. What an utter belter of a game. So before we get on to that, how I like to do this as well is I like to discuss how I got into said game, what my general thoughts were of the game whilst playing it, and then the future of said game. So let's start off with, well, how did I get into Final Fantasy X? Now I will actually start this with a little story about how I did not like Final Fantasy X originally. So when it first came out on PlayStation 2, well, I wasn't a fan of it at all because it wasn't like my Final Fantasy 7, 8 or 9, which had been used on the PlayStation 1 because it didn't have a world map. Boo hoo hoo, you stupid young chicken fillets. The thing was, back then, I really was fully against having a JRPG or RPG without a world map. I don't know what it was. I had this self-imposed wall. I just couldn't get past it. And I never really played it at all. One thing I did remember before I actually recorded this, should I say, was I remember UK official PlayStation 2 magazine would always release a demo disc with their magazine, and actually it had a Final Fantasy X playable demo, and you got two sections that you could play through. So there was one where Tidus would get from one area of Besaid, I would say, and then the intro scene with him and Auron getting through Zanarkand whilst it's being attacked. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the fights in it. So I just, thinking about it now, I can't understand why I just couldn't get past the whole world map thing. I know it's utterly stupid. But how did I actually get into it now, being older? So, when I first started getting back into JRPGs, well, actually, I'll rewind it a wee bit more, is I was gifted a voucher for a store in the UK called Game, which funnily enough sells games. And Final Fantasy X and X Part 2 had got released on PlayStation 3, and I had not long picked up a PlayStation 3 cheap off of a friend. So I bought the PlayStation 3 version of it, the game, and I was really enjoying it. And then not long after, I bought a PlayStation Vita. I actually bought it off someone in a little car park. I did it through Gumtree. Anyway, dodgy dealing at a little car park. Christ. Anyway, so I picked up the PS Vita version as a companion because you may not know this, but you could actually transfer your data from the PlayStation 3 version to your PS Vita copy. And I thought, oh, this is a great companion piece, blah, blah, blah. I actually ended up playing it on the PS Vita, like, all the way through. Like, once I got the PS Vita version, I just basically played on there non-stop. So I got rid of the PlayStation 3 version, and I just absolutely adored it. And what made me get this version of it, was when I finally got back into JRPGs, I finally got rid of this barrier I had put up about having all JRPGs needed a world map and this, that, and the next thing, which was so self-imposed. I got past this, and it made me want to revisit games that I maybe didn't like when I was younger. And Final Fantasy X was an example of this. And I loved every second of my playthroughs with this. I've completed it multiple times now because Final Fantasy X is, it's a masterpiece of a Final Fantasy game. It really is. Everything to do with this world of Spira is amazing. Now, it's the first Final Fantasy to be fully voice acted. The likes of James Taylor with the iconic laugh. And then you've got a fantastic set of characters in the likes of Yuna, Waka Waka Waka, I can't believe I did that, Auron, etc. Auron, by the way, is a complete badass. I've got a couple of figurines of Final Fantasy X characters. I've got Tidus and I've got Auron as well. on the shelf. That's how much these characters mean to me. I think they're great. The story of Titus being brought into the land of Spira through Sin, finding out what and who is Sin, ending up finding he's actually Jack, who is Titus's dad. The pilgrimage that you go on with Yuna as well is an amazing story, and some of the cinematics in this is beautiful, especially when she's doing the sending of the spirits after a Sin attack. You know, that is just breathtaking. Everything about the game is just amazing. The remastered version as well, the new set of orchestration with the music, the remastered music is fantastic. Music in games is really important to me, and the Final Fantasy X's music is just one of the best soundtracks. I mean, all Final Fantasy soundtracks are amazing, but it is top tier when it comes to the music of Final Fantasy. The battle system as well is one of the best turn-based combat systems in Final Fantasy. This has not been replicated since in another Final Fantasy, but this one, the closest sort of JRPG which replicates this kind of is actually like the Trails of Cold Steel, the Legend of Heroes Trails of series. So in Final Fantasy X you could see who had the next turn, etc., and it really made you think and plan out what you were going to do next. I really liked it. Being able to swap your characters in and out as well. So I remember like swapping like one character, I would make them do one hit, and that would get them experience as well. Now, speaking of experience, the way that leveling was done in this as well wasn't like your traditional Final Fantasies where you win a battle, you get experience, and then your levels will go up. It didn't work like this. So you had the Sphere Grid this time. So you were in charge of how your growth of your characters went. So you could have characters go down different paths. So you could eventually have your character, like, let's say Auron, learn black magic. But, Auron, you just made him an utter tank because he could be really powerful if you focused on the power side of things. I'm so glad that I got past this barrier, the self-imposed barrier that I had, because Final Fantasy X is amazing, and I just love revisiting it all the time. Apart from, and I think a lot of people who have played this game will agree with me, the Chocobo race section where you've got to try and get all the feathers with a time of 0 seconds. Oh, I remember speaking to someone about this. I can't remember who it was, but he said to me, I really hate that bit. I really hate it. Now, I remember my first couple of attempts. It took me only like 4 to 5 attempts. Yeah, I know. I was just jammy as anything with it. But I can understand why people hate that section. Oh, God. Now, let's talk about the future of Final Fantasy X, because, well, we had, I say future, I'm not going to talk about 10 Part 2 because I'm not really too keen on that. But the actual future of Final Fantasy X is quite interesting because there is heavy rumours at the moment, at the time of this recording, that Final Fantasy X could get a sequel in the future. Could be something that they look back on. I don't think it needs a remake because I think the game is great enough as it is, and it's not often I say that because I'm one for, I like games being remade, but Final Fantasy X doesn't need a remake. It really, really doesn't. It's fantastic as it is. If they did a sequel like a 10 Part 2, what I really think they should do is a 10 Part 0. Now what I mean by this is having a prequel. So the story of Yuna's father, Jack, and Auron, and the cycle of Sin then, because you could build the backstory of Jack. I always thought they missed a beat. Now I remember there were talks, or something along the lines that they were going to do this, but something didn't happen. And I really think that would be an interesting take on Final Fantasy X. That would be one way forward for the series. Whether or not we get a sequel, we'll just gonna have to wait and see, because we've got the heavily rumoured Final Fantasy IX, which could be making an appearance as well. So we'll just have to wait and see. So anyway, those were my thoughts on Final Fantasy X and my remembering of the series. Now what I want to know is, well, have you played Final Fantasy X? What were your thoughts on it? You know what to do by now. Leave a comment down below and let me know. And also tell me about my pronunciation of Tidus or Tidus, what one I should be using. Now, if you like what you're hearing and seeing on the channel, please help me grow it by liking, sharing and subscribing. And if you want to be kept up to date with everything Chicken Fillets, well, hit that notification bell. This has been John, aka Chicken Fillets, and until next time, tatty bye. That's a bit too long now.